Hi everybody. I'm just waiting for Peter to log on and then we can add her in and have a chat. So thanks for stopping by. Hi everybody. This is exciting. Thanks for staying up so late. 9:30 is late in my day. I'm just really chuffed that Peter's going to join us. Can you hear me okay, everybody? Hi everybody, can you hear me? Can you give me a little wave if you can hear me? Oh, hello, hello. I'm just waiting for Peter to join because it is, oh, hi Sam. It's 7:30 in the morning for her, so bless her, she'll have just got up. Oh, great. Great, you can hear me. This is my first live. It's very exciting. I'm pleased you found me. Has anybody heard of Peter before? Anybody read any of her books? Give me a nod or a tick if you have. Hello? Oh, hi!
Hi, Louisa. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to join you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honoured.
I know, it's always hard when you're on the other side of the world, so thank you for staying up so late.
Yeah, well, I had a real moment this week. I sent out the details to everybody that I thought might be interested and realised I'd put the wrong date on because my brain, I thought you were behind and instead of a front. So yeah, that was... Anyway, you're here and you're awake. Thanks for getting up so early.
Oh, look, pleasure. Have a coffee. It's all good.
Oh, good. Phew. Well, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you've probably got a busy day ahead. So I just thought it'd be really lovely. First of all, if you could introduce yourself to the UK followers. I guess EFT is not that well known here, really. I guess it is a little bit, but perhaps it's not as prominent as with you guys.
Yeah, you have got a small group of dedicated individuals over there that do lots of great work. But yes, so to everyone that's listening, I'm Peta Stapleton. So I'm a clinical psychologist, but associate professor at Bond University here in Queensland. And it's summertime over here, so it's very hot for us. And we have lots of bushfires at the moment in Australia. So it's all happening. Yeah, but I have probably the last 15 years done most of the research in EFT tapping here from Australia. So the internet's amazing. You can stay connected with everybody, but primarily it's just been me, just came out of my love for the technique, which I'm sure we'll get into chatting about.
Right. Well, I mean, I think what I'm most interested in is the research side of stuff, because anybody can find EFT on YouTube or online and tap, but I have lots of people asking me how does it work, which is, you know, is really fascinating. But what I first wanted to ask you is how you came across it and how you came into it.
Yeah, I was probably in a desperate state in my clinical career, and it was really early on. So I'd come out of my university and I was out there and I was doing all my clinical work, and I work in eating disorders, so that's my background client-wise. And a lot of the stuff I'd learned just wasn't working. So I was a bit desperate, and I was sort of whinging to a colleague, and he had been sort of online searching for different techniques and things like that. He was sort of thought outside the box. And he said to me, look, I've come across this really weird, strange technique. And I just brushed him off. I didn't know what he was talking about. But he ended up coming along and helping me at a support group I was running for eating disorder sufferers. And a young girl there that night had a panic attack. And he just sort of said, look, I'll take her off to the side and, help her, because we had quite a few women in the group. Anyway, they came back within about 5-6 minutes, and she was really calm. And I thought at the time, and I write about this in my book, I thought he must have given her a Valium or something. Like, she was so calm. And it was so nice. That's not very ethical. Anyway, after the group, they all go home, and I said, what happened there? Like, she was having a panic attack. And he said, I did that tapping thing I've been trying to tell you about. And I said, okay, you better tell me what this is. So that was about 18 years ago, and we went off and did some local training, and then my academic job allowed me to do some research. So I said to my boss, look, I've come across this thing where you tap on these pressure points. Can I research that? And can you imagine the look on his face? He was a medical doctor. He's like, I don't think anybody will come to your trials. That's just a bit weird. And that very first trial we ran, we had 4,500 people that wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah. So he nearly died. And then the rest is history. So we kind of just kept staying with it because we didn't know what would happen, and we didn't know that it would be embraced as much as it has been here in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, so from 0 to 4,500 people.
Yeah, we obviously couldn't handle that many people in the clinical trial. We had no idea. People from New Zealand, I'll fly over every week for the groups. I'm like, that's probably not okay. Anyway, we've gone on to do lots, and we do online trials now, so anyone anywhere in the world can participate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it really was a surprise to us as well.
Gosh, that's incredible. And tell me a little bit more about how it works with people with eating disorders, because I think that's fascinating, really.
Yeah, so most of our research for the last decade has been in obesity and eating disorders like bulimia nervosa or binge eating disorder. So it really works to quieten down that stress response in the body. So if we apply that to a food craving, so somebody wants to have a binge or just cravings daily, then it really quells those cravings, because any anxiety or stress in that response literally just becomes zero. And then what that means over time is actually stop eating that food. So the desire for those foods often doesn't return ever. So that's been quite amazing. Obviously, the other end of eating disorders with anorexia nervosa, we're obviously a little bit careful in how we do approach that, just because that's such an issue of control. And but it might be about teaching a young sufferer how to use it for anxiety when they are relearning to eat again, and the worries that they might have about gaining weight and irrational thoughts and things like that. So it can be applied to so many different things. It almost seems a bit surreal when you look at the research. Even you go from chronic pain to phobias to eating disorders to, something else, and you kind of think, how can it possibly, post-traumatic stress disorder work for so many things? But because that common denominator is stress, then that is why it works, because it's just a stress reduction technique. It just sends a signal back to the amygdala to quieten down, and then of course when that primitive fight and flight center of your brain's not firing, you can think more clearly, you can obviously make better choices, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I remember when I was reading some of your book, and I thought, for me personally, I was like, oh, straight after Christmas, this is great timing to chat to you when the kitchen is still full of chocolate. And, I thought that was quite a nice sort of connection, really. So tell me talk to me about the science. So I can see straight off, how it makes me feel. It makes me feel really relaxed and really positive and clear-headed. But what does it actually do? Yeah. I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah. So anyone listening obviously might be familiar with tapping, but we tap on the pressure points that, many of them are on the face, the acupressure points that are in acupuncture. What we do know after decades now, and we didn't when I first got into it, but it's much clearer, is there is some connection between those acupressure points and the stress center in the brain. The amygdala, they're sending out that fight or flight. So there is a neurological effect that is happening, if you like, of calming that center down. What we do have now is loads of physiological studies that also show hormones change. So cortisol in particular, that stress hormone, plummets. So an hour of tapping, our latest trial showed an hour of tapping, 43% reduction in cortisol just after 1 hour of tapping on stress, like insane. We've got 3 or 4 DNA studies now worldwide that show the DNA expression, so whether or not someone's DNA is expressing itself as to whether or not, their immune system might be compromised and things like that. DNA cell expression changes, and again, only after 1 hour of tapping. Dawson Church in the US ran a trial of war vets, so they had 10 sessions over 10 weeks, an hour a week, and they had 6 genes associated with post-traumatic stress disorder that just down-regulated, meaning they stopped expressing themselves. So that means they don't have the symptoms of PTSD. So they don't turn themselves back on, which is a bonus. And blood pressure, heart rate variability. We've done an fMRI study here of the food cravings in obese people. So if I put you in an MRI machine and show you pictures of food, I can tell you exactly what part of your brain will light up. And then 4 weeks of tapping, we put them all back in the machine, looked at the pictures of food again, no activation. So they can look at the picture, but they don't get any desire, and the brain shows that. So we're about to do that same study for chronic pain, where we will look at fMRI brain changes here in Australia. In the next couple of months, we'll start that. So, yeah, so we've got a bunch of physiological things that match what you said, which is I feel better. If I do the tapping, I feel calmer. If I give it a number out of 10, I'm a low number. I feel clearer, but we now know your body matches that. So it's not just a feel-good psychological thing, it's physiological, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I was talking to a colleague and I was saying how EFT cured my back pain and it has never come back. And she looked at me so skeptical and she said, but isn't it just all in your brain? And I was like, yeah, is that the point? But it's been really interesting trying to explain it to people who've never heard of it. So if somebody was to come to you and you said, oh, I do EFT tapping, and they looked at you with a blank face, how would you explain it to somebody?
So
what would you say?
Yeah, always here we tend to sort of be very casual. So I don't get too scientific if it was somebody that was brand new. But I would always link it to something they know. So most people tend to know what acupuncture is. So I'll sort of ask, do you know what acupuncture is? Oh, yeah. I'll say, well, we tap on pressure points that are used in acupuncture, but we don't use any needles. And look, it's a stress reduction tool and it sends a signal back to that stress center in the brain to calm down. And people go, oh, okay. So you kind of keep it, you know, if you're talking to a health professional, it might be that you link it to something they already know, like exposure therapy. And instead of doing deep breathing, we tap on these pressure points. So, yeah, more and more, and I do get people to go out there and try it as an experiment. Pick a random stranger and try and tell them what tapping is, just to see what kind of response you get. And I think, not trying to be too it's not that it's not serious, but it's also about just go with what they already know and accept as a belief. And you may even sort of offer, yeah, look, it's a bit strange. It seems different to traditional talk therapy, but it's not that different to, other kind of trauma processing techniques, if you like, because there's a range of different physical things out there, or EMDR, the eye movement desensitization. So if somebody already kind of accepts that, well, it's not too, it's like, yeah, we just tap on pressure points instead of using a needle like in acupuncture. Yeah.
It is interesting. Some people go straight into it and other people look at me as if I'm talking, hieroglyphics at them. So it's sometimes about trying to find the right terminology so it doesn't sound too woo. I don't know if you ever get that sort of thing, but that's why I thought it'd be so interesting to talk to you, because you come from almost like a medical background. So, and I've had a couple of conversations with people over here who dismiss it, are very dismissive of it.
Yes.
Do you ever get into that situation? I guess you don't. You're the one doing the research, but do you ever get into that sort of conversation?
Probably, it still happens. I mean, I certainly present at conferences, and sometimes EFT is the only thing on the agenda remotely like that. So people have never heard of it, and I'm talking to doctors and whatever. I probably, after all these years, I come from a position of, look, we now have so much research. The question really is, how much research do you need? And if someone does choose that they don't want to accept that for now, I'm okay with that, and I sort of let it go. So I'm sort of not a diehard, zealot trying to convince everybody out there. If they want to try it, great. If they don't worry about it. I think one of the biggest questions to come back to when someone sort of says, oh, that doesn't work, is to ask, have you ever tried it? Because often when someone says, no, those things don't work, they actually have never tried it. So they're not basing that on anything personal. And then I guess if they said, oh, no, it's like, well, do you want to try it, and certainly do it in the hands of somebody that knows what they're doing, not a YouTube video. That's the other thing you mentioned. There's so many videos out there that often people will tap with a video and actually get distressed, which actually means tapping's working, but they think that means tapping's not working. So sometimes we have to correct some. Yeah. But certainly in the UK, you've got the advantage that your NICE, your health government department, has now approved funding for EFT.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's huge. Like, we are trying to replicate that here in Australia, because you've literally got a government, and you can fall back on that when you talk to people. You have a government agency that said, yes, there's enough research here that you can apply for funding.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and I feel very much that the more I talk about it, the more people kind of go, oh, yeah, I think I heard, or I think I've seen something. So I feel like we're really on the edge of something really exciting.
Yes, I agree.
One thing just made me think was, is there anybody that you think EFT doesn't work for or won't work for?
Look, when we look at the research, there's more and more coming, like countries that we didn't even know existed were doing research, we're seeing publish things. So really a great range of areas and topics that they're obviously finding effects for. So it's not that I don't think it works for different conditions or issues. It's probably more about the hands of the person and the skill level of the person who is participating or guiding, or the practitioner in that person's life. Certainly we would never use the word cure for different conditions, and say there's a couple of studies published on schizophrenia, but it's not that tapping is being used, and dementia, there's a couple of studies there, conditions that perhaps are lifelong, and what it's being used for is to help them with coping or stress or things like that, but not necessarily to remove that condition. So as long as people understand, it's not about, oh, you won't have schizophrenia anymore or things like that.
Yes.
So I guess the more complex, say personality disorders or things like that if somebody wasn't skilled in that area, you would, obviously do duty of care and kind of seek somebody out if you wanted to go and see someone that really was skilled in that area. So apart from that, no. I mean, we've done everything from sort of epilepsy right through to phobias, through to personality disorders, like the full spectrum of clinical conditions. And at some level, it has a place somewhere in people's lives.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I've got one other question, which was, what is the biggest transformation that you've seen? I mean, obviously with your research, you'll have seen some incredible things, but I wondered if you could share a story that sticks in your mind of something that's happened.
Yes, because most of our research in the last decade has been the food craving obesity. So we have an obesity crisis here in Australia as well, like 65% of adults. It's just getting worse and worse. So we have always done our research there. And I can't tell you there's more than one story, but our clients in our trials get 8 weeks worth of tapping. So they come 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. And then they don't get any more tapping after that. So whether they go on and do their own tapping is up to them. And we do ask them that when we follow up. And the amount of people that we've had that come through those groups that go on to lose like 30 and 40 and 50 kilograms. And some of these are now 10 years down the track. And we stay in touch with some of them. And they've not regained the weight. So they didn't do any extra exercise. They obviously did the tapping on the foods that created the biggest issue. And then somewhere along the line, they might have started to drink more water and got more movement in their life because they were able to, losing weight. But I think the thing that stands out for me is the weight doesn't come back. So it's not like one of our other major diet companies or things like that, where typically you lose the weight, but then within a year or two it comes back and you get even more. That has not happened with tapping. We've done a smoking trial where it's the same thing, cigarette smoking. They quit. And then 5, 8 years down the track, because that's how long ago it was, they don't go back to the habit. So to me, that's what stands out, is the longevity of, there's lots of individual stories in there, but these people just don't, they don't revert back to the baseline. So the brain indeed changes that pathway and it stays changed. And that's where people do ask that question, well, how long does it last? And I'm like, well, I can tell you these stories of all these people. We've published a 2-year follow-up and things like that, but you stop following up after that. I'm like, it lasts forever. It lasts forever. Like your back pain. Like,
Yeah.
when will it come back? Never. It'll never come back. Yeah.
And isn't that just incredible to think that those people, what a life-changing thing that is for some people?
That's right, because they never have to think about it. And what I love is there's no willpower. You don't have to get up in the morning and go, I'm going to say my positive affirmations, or I'm going to, you know, will myself into whatever today. You don't have to. They literally forget whatever it was that they did their tapping on, which is lovely because the brain can rewire if you're not focused on it. And that we're seeing that's what happens. So, yeah.
I'm glad
I came across this really weird technique from my friend.
Yeah. I think that it breaks my head a bit about how, not just what a difference it makes to some people, but the fact that it changes them, you know, permanently, which I find a few times in some of my client sessions is obviously resistance to change. You know, they're quite used to their situation, and whilst their brain says they want to change, there is physical resistance to it at some level. So the fact that you've been able to get people in and actually change that for them, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. That's what makes it all worthwhile, doing all this research. Great.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I only wanted to have a quick chat, and I'll let you get on with your day. So
Thank you.
I will probably chat with you on Instagram again.
Sounds lovely. And next March, I'm actually in the UK, so I'll let you know before I'm there. So I am coming over for a conference presentation and a workshop.
Oh, brilliant.
So we will actually run a workshop for how to use it for tapping and food cravings. So I'll let you know and let your followers know.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Have a lovely day. Bye.